My name is Rebecca Martinez, and at 29, I thought I'd finally found my place in the world. I'm a software engineer in Austin, Texas, working for a cutting-edge startup that's changing how people connect online. My salary is something I never dreamed of growing up, especially considering where I came from. But success has a funny way of bringing old wounds to the surface. One rainy Tuesday evening, my past came knocking at my door in the worst possible way. My mom showed up with my spoiled half-brother, but they weren't there to celebrate my achievements. Instead, they delivered a message that left me speechless and heartbroken. They wanted me gone from their lives, forever. The reason? My success was apparently ruining their carefully crafted image, and they couldn't have me around anymore. If you've ever felt rejected by your own family because of your success, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more real-life drama that'll make you think twice about what family really means. Growing up in a small town in New Mexico, I learned early that life wasn't going to hand me anything. My childhood ended abruptly when I was 8 years old. The day my mom, Carmen Rodriguez, decided she wanted a different life. She'd been restless for months, always talking about how she deserved better, how she was meant for something bigger than our tiny apartment above the laundromat. My dad, Miguel Martinez, worked 2 jobs just to keep us afloat. During the day, he fixed cars at Santos Auto Repair, his hands permanently stained with grease, coming home smelling like motor oil and determination. At night, he cleaned office buildings downtown, pushing a cart full of supplies through empty hallways until dawn. Dad barely slept, but he never complained. He'd ruffle my hair and say, "Mija, we're building something good here. Just wait and see." But Mom didn't want to wait. She'd grown tired of our struggles, tired of clipping coupons and shopping at thrift stores. When she met Richard Patterson, an insurance salesman from Albuquerque who drove a shiny BMW and wore expensive suits, everything changed. Richard promised her a life of comfort, weekend trips to Santa Fe, dinners at fancy restaurants where the waiters wore bow ties. The divorce was brutal. Mom painted Dad as lazy, unmotivated, someone who'd never amount to anything. She twisted everything, making herself look like the victim of his lack of ambition. The judge awarded her custody every other weekend, but she rarely used it. 2 years later, she had my half-brother, Tyler Patterson, and I became an afterthought, a reminder of a life she wanted to forget. Dad did his best to fill the void. He'd take me fishing at the reservoir on Sundays, teaching me to cast a line while sharing stories about his own childhood. "Rebecca," he'd say, his voice soft as the morning breeze, "your mama made her choice, but you get to make yours. And I believe you're going to do something amazing." Those words became my anchor when the world felt too heavy. By age 12, I was essentially raising myself. Dad's double shifts meant I walked home to an empty house most days. I learned to cook simple meals, do my own laundry, and handle homework without help. When Dad got home after midnight, exhausted and barely able to keep his eyes open, I'd already be asleep, my completed assignments neatly stacked on the kitchen table. Mom's visits became increasingly rare and uncomfortable. She'd pick me up in Richard's BMW, and I'd spend awkward weekends in their pristine suburban home, trying not to touch anything. Tyler, even as a toddler, was already showing signs of the entitlement that would define him. If he wanted a toy, he got it immediately. If he didn't like his dinner, Mom would make him something else. I watched this from the sidelines, a guest in what should have been a second home. The contrast was stark. At Dad's, we shared one small bathroom and ate generic cereal for breakfast. At Mom's, Tyler had his own playroom filled with expensive toys, and Mom served organic everything on matching dishes. But somehow, I always felt more comfortable in our cramped apartment, where love was measured in quality time rather than quality things. School became my escape and my salvation. I discovered computers in the 6th grade, staying after school to use the lab when other kids went home to snacks and cartoons. Mrs. Sarah Johnson, our computer teacher, noticed my enthusiasm and started teaching me basic programming. "You have a natural talent for this, Rebecca," she said one afternoon as I successfully debugged a simple code. "Technology is the future, and you could be part of shaping it." Those words ignited something in me. I spent every free moment learning, reading programming books from the library, watching online tutorials on the school's ancient computers. While other kids played video games, I was learning to create them. High school brought new challenges. Dad's health began failing from years of overwork and stress. He developed chronic back problems from lifting heavy car parts, but he couldn't afford to take time off or see a doctor regularly. I watched him wince as he got out of bed each morning, his face gray with pain he tried to hide. I started working part-time at a local computer repair shop, earning money to help with groceries and Dad's medical bills. The owner, Tom Wilson, taught me hardware repair and networking basics. "You're a natural problem solver," he said, watching me diagnose a tricky motherboard issue. "That's a rare gift in this field." Meanwhile, Mom's visits had dwindled to birthday cards with generic messages. "Hope you're doing well in school," she'd write in neat cursive, as if I were a distant relative rather than her daughter. Tyler, now in elementary school, didn't even know my middle name. To him, I was just some girl his mom occasionally mentioned, a person from before his perfect world existed. I threw myself into my studies with fierce determination. I joined the robotics club, competed in coding competitions, and maintained a 4.0 GPA while working 15 hours a week. My guidance counselor, Mr. James Crawford, pulled me aside during my junior year. "Rebecca, you need to start thinking about college," he said, handing me a stack of scholarship applications. "Your scores are incredible. You could go anywhere." The thought seemed impossible. College was for rich kids, kids whose parents had been saving since birth. But Mr. Crawford didn't let me give up. He helped me apply for every scholarship I qualified for, staying after school to review my essays and letters of recommendation. When the acceptance letters started arriving, I could barely believe it. Full ride to University of Texas at Austin for computer science. Dad cried when I told him, actual tears streaming down his weathered face. "Mija, I always knew you were special," he whispered, pulling me into a hug that smelled like motor oil and pride. College was a culture shock. My roommate, Ashley Williams, came from a wealthy Dallas family and casually mentioned her parents' vacation home in Colorado. She had a car, a credit card, and a wardrobe that cost more than Dad's annual salary. But she was kind, never making me feel less than because I wore thrift store clothes and couldn't afford to eat out. I worked 3 jobs to cover living expenses, tutoring struggling students in programming, working the night shift at the campus computer lab, and doing freelance web design for local businesses. My schedule was brutal, but it kept me focused. While other students partied on weekends, I was in the lab, honing my skills, building the foundation for my future. The work paid off. By my senior year, I was leading project teams, had internships with major tech companies, and professors were recommending me for graduate programs. Dr. Lisa Thompson, my advanced algorithms professor, became a mentor. "Rebecca, you have something special," she said after I'd solved a particularly complex optimization problem. "You see patterns others miss. That's going to take you far." Graduation day was bittersweet. Dad drove his old truck 8 hours to Austin, wearing his only suit, the one he'd bought for my high school graduation. He sat in that auditorium, beaming with pride as I walked across the stage. Mom didn't come. She sent a congratulations card 2 weeks later, the kind you buy at a gas station. I moved to Austin permanently and landed a position at Innovate Tech, a startup developing social media platforms for professional networking. The salary was more than Dad and I had ever dreamed of. My first paycheck felt surreal, enough money to cover rent, groceries, and still have plenty left over. I immediately started sending Dad $800 a month. It wasn't charity. It was payback for all the years he'd sacrificed his health and happiness for mine. He protested at first, saying, he didn't need my money, but I insisted. Dad, this is my way of saying thank you, I told him during one of our weekly phone calls. You gave me everything when you had nothing to give. With his financial stress reduced, Dad was able to cut back to one job and focus on his health. He started physical therapy for his back, moved to a better apartment, and even bought himself a used car that didn't break down every month. Hearing the relief in his voice during our calls made every late night of coding worth it. Life was good. I was promoted twice in my first 2 years, leading a team of developers on cutting-edge projects. My colleagues respected me, my boss valued my input, and I was building the kind of life I'd dreamed about in that cramped apartment in New Mexico. I thought I'd left my past behind, that I'd proven myself beyond the shadow of Mom's abandonment. But success has a way of attracting attention, even from people who've ignored you for years. The wake-up call came through social media, of all places. A college classmate had tagged me in a post about Austin's 30 under 30 tech leaders, and the article mentioned my salary range and the company's recent success. The post went viral in our local community, shared by hometown friends and family members who'd watched me grow up. That's when Mom started paying attention again. It started with a Facebook friend request, which I ignored. Then came emails to my work address, which I deleted without reading. Finally, she got my personal phone number somehow and started leaving voicemails. Her voice was different, warmer than I remembered, with a fake sweetness that made my skin crawl. Rebecca, honey, it's Mom. I've been thinking about you so much lately. I heard you're doing wonderful things in Austin. We should catch up soon. I didn't call back. 21 years of silence couldn't be erased by a cheerful voicemail, but Mom was persistent. She started contacting my coworkers through LinkedIn, introducing herself as my proud mother and asking about my work. My boss, Jennifer Walsh, mentioned it casually during a team meeting. Someone claiming to be your mom reached out asking about our company culture. Seemed nice, but it was a bit odd. My stomach dropped. Mom was inserting herself into my professional life, a space she'd never belonged in. The thought of her infiltrating the world I'd built from scratch made me feel physically sick. Then Tyler reached out directly, sending me a DM on Instagram. His profile was exactly what I expected. Expensive clothes, luxury cars, vacation photos from exotic locations. His message was brief but loaded. Hey sis, Mom says you're some big shot tech person now. Cool. We should meet up sometime. The casual tone, the assumption that we were close enough for nicknames, the way he reduced my hard-earned success to some big shot tech person, it all felt calculated and dismissive. I blocked him immediately, but the damage was done. They knew where I was, what I was doing, and how much I was earning. After decades of indifference, my success had finally made me interesting to them. The confrontation I'd been dreading came on a rainy Tuesday evening in March. I was working late in my home office, debugging code for a major client presentation, when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the sound startled me from my focused flow state. Through the peephole, I saw 2 figures huddled under umbrellas on my front porch. My heart stopped when I recognized Mom's profile, older but unmistakable. Beside her stood Tyler, now 17 and tall, scrolling through his phone with the bored expression of someone being dragged somewhere against his will. I considered not answering, pretending I wasn't home. But curiosity and 21 years of unanswered questions won out. I opened the door, leaving the chain lock engaged. Rebecca! Mom's voice was bright, artificially enthusiastic. Surprise! I hope you don't mind us dropping by. We were in the neighborhood and thought we'd say hello. The lie was immediate and obvious. Austin was 6 hours from Albuquerque, and my neighborhood wasn't somewhere you ended up by accident. I stared at her through the gap in the door, taking in the changes time had brought. She looked older, more polished, with perfectly styled hair and expensive makeup. Her clothes screamed country club member, all coordinated and pristine. Tyler barely looked up from his phone, muttering a half-hearted "hey" in my direction. At 17, he had the same entitled posture I remembered from childhood, but amplified. His clothes were designer, his sneakers cost more than most people's rent, and his attitude suggested the world owed him something. "What do you want?" I asked, not removing the chain. Mom's smile faltered slightly. "Can't a mother visit her daughter? I heard you're doing so well. I'm proud of you, honey." The word proud hit like a slap. Proud of what? The success she'd had no part in creating? The achievements she'd ignored for over 2 decades? Against my better judgment, I let them in. My living room, which had always felt spacious and welcoming, suddenly felt cramped and invaded. Mom's eyes swept over everything with an appraising look, taking in the modern furniture, the large TV, the expensive laptop on my coffee table. "This is lovely," she said, her voice carrying an undertone I couldn't quite identify. "You've done very well for yourself." Tyler sprawled across my couch without being invited, leaving his wet shoes on my coffee table. "Nice place," he said, finally looking up from his phone. "Must cost a fortune in this area." They sat there like they belonged, like the last 2 decades hadn't happened. Mom made small talk about the weather, the drive from Albuquerque, Tyler's junior year of high school. But underneath the pleasantries, I sensed something else brewing, a tension that made my skin crawl. "So," Mom said, her tone shifting slightly, "I've been hearing things about your job, about how successful you've become." There it was, the real reason for their visit. "I work hard," I said simply, not offering details. "I'm sure you do," she replied, her smile not reaching her eyes. "It's just... well, this is a bit awkward, but I need to ask you something important." My pulse quickened. Here it comes, I thought. The request for money, the attempt to reconnect now that I was valuable to them. But what came next wasn't what I expected. "Rebecca, honey, I need you to understand our situation," Mom began, her voice taking on a rehearsed quality. "Richard and I have worked very hard to build our life in Albuquerque. We're part of a certain social circle now, and appearances matter a great deal." I stared at her, not understanding where this was going. "The thing is," she continued, glancing at Tyler for support, "some of our friends have heard about your success, and it's creating some uncomfortable questions." "What kind of questions?" I asked, though I was beginning to suspect where this was headed. Tyler looked up from his phone, sighing dramatically. "Look, it's nothing personal," he said, his tone dismissive, "but people are starting to ask why Mom's other daughter wasn't raised in our house, why she's been separate from our family." The word separate hit like a physical blow. Not independent or on her own, but separate. Like I was something to be quarantined. Mom leaned forward, her expression suddenly intense. "You have to understand, Rebecca. Richard has a reputation to maintain. His business, our social standing, Tyler's future college applications. They all depend on us presenting a certain image." "And what image is that?" I asked, though I already knew. "A stable, successful family," she said without hesitation. "Richard's clients trust him because they see him as someone who has his life together. Tyler needs to be seen as coming from the right kind of home for his college interviews." Tyler nodded, adding, "My girlfriend's parents are super influential in the community. They can't know about this situation. This situation." That's what I was to them. Not a sister, not a daughter, but a situation to be managed. Mom reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "That's why we're here," she said, her voice becoming businesslike. "We need you to sign this." I took the envelope with trembling hands and pulled out a single sheet of paper. As I read, my world tilted off its axis. It was a legal document, drawn up by Richard's attorney, requesting that I formally agree to have no contact with Carmen Rodriguez Patterson or Tyler Patterson. It included clauses about not mentioning our family relationship publicly, not contacting their friends or associates, and not attempting to reconnect in the future. At the bottom was a signature line and a notary seal. "You want me to legally agree to pretend we're not related?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's for everyone's benefit," Mom said quickly. "You've built your own life, and it's wonderful. But our worlds are just different now. This makes it official. Clean." Tyler piped up, his tone casual as if we were discussing the weather. "Plus, it's not like we were ever really close anyway. This just makes it formal." I looked at them both, sitting in my living room, in the home I'd built through years of sacrifice and hard work, asking me to erase myself from their lives legally and permanently. "What if I refuse?" I asked. Mom's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold beneath. "Then we'll have to take other measures," she said. "Richard knows people, Rebecca. Lawyers, business owners, people with influence. Your little tech company probably depends on clients who value family stability." The threat was subtle, but clear. "Sign this, or we'll try to damage your career." Tyler was back to scrolling his phone, bored by the entire conversation. "Just sign it," he said without looking up. "It's not like it changes anything real. We barely know each other anyway." I stared at the document, the words blurring as tears threatened to fall. They weren't here to reconnect, to apologize, or even to ask for money. They were here to cut me out of their lives so completely that I'd never be able to embarrass them again. The cruelty was breathtaking. Not content with ignoring me for 21 years, they wanted to make sure I could never seek them out, never show up at Tyler's graduation or Mom's birthday, never accidentally encounter them in public and risk someone asking uncomfortable questions. "I need time to think about this," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Mom's smile returned, brittle and false. "Of course, honey, but we do need an answer soon. Richard is closing a big deal next month, and we can't have any complications." Complications. First a situation, now a complication. I was collecting labels that reduced me to problems to be solved. They left soon after, Tyler complaining about the rain and Mom promising to check in soon about my decision. I locked the door behind them and slid down to the floor, the legal document still clutched in my hand. For the first time since childhood, I felt completely alone. That night, I called Dad. He listened in silence as I explained the visit, the document, their threats. When I finished, there was a long pause. "Mija," he said finally, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry. I knew your mother was capable of many things. But this—" "What should I do, Dad?" I asked, feeling like that 8-year-old girl again, lost and confused by adult complications. "You should do what you've always done," he said firmly. "You should choose what's right for you, not what's convenient for people who don't deserve your consideration." His words gave me strength, but the decision still felt impossible. If I refused to sign, they might follow through on their threats. If I signed, I'd be agreeing to erase myself from existence in their world. I spent the next 3 days researching Richard's business, their social circle, and Tyler's activities. What I found made everything worse. They weren't just successful. They were pillars of their community. Richard served on charity boards. Mom was president of the Country Club Auxiliary, and Tyler was being recruited by Ivy League colleges. They had everything to lose and nothing to gain from acknowledging me. But I had something to lose too. My career, my reputation, the life I'd built through sheer determination. The thought of them trying to sabotage my professional relationships made me physically sick. I was trapped, caught between protecting myself and refusing to be erased. The decision came to me during a team meeting at work. My colleague Marcus was presenting our quarterly results, showing how our latest platform had connected thousands of professionals and helped them build meaningful career relationships. The beauty of what we do, he said, clicking through slides of user testimonials, is that we help people authentic connections based on mutual respect and shared values. Authentic connections, mutual respect, shared values. I realized that's what I'd been searching for my entire life, and it's what Mom and Tyler would never be able to offer me. They didn't want a connection. They wanted control. They didn't respect me. They saw me as a threat, and we shared no values whatsoever. That evening, I called a lawyer, Rebecca Martinez, no relation, who specialized in family law. She reviewed the document Mom had brought and shook her head. "This is highly unusual," she said, frowning at the legal language, "and potentially unenforceable. You can't legally prevent someone from acknowledging their family relationships." "But they're threatening my career," I explained. Jessica leaned back in her chair. "That could constitute harassment or coercion. We could file a restraining order if you want." The irony wasn't lost on me. They wanted me to disappear from their lives, but I might need legal protection to keep them out of mine. Instead of signing their document, I decided to write my own response. I spent hours crafting a letter that was professional, clear, and final. I explained that I had no intention of disrupting their lives, but I also wouldn't be signing any document that legally erased my existence. I wished them well and requested that they not contact me again. I sent it certified mail and copied Jessica, creating a legal trail in case they followed through on their threats. Mom's response came within a day. A brief, cold email that simply said, "You're making a mistake, Rebecca. Don't say we didn't warn you." But nothing happened. No business contacts suddenly canceled meetings. No mysterious rumors circulated about my work. Their threats had been empty, designed to scare me into compliance. 6 months later, I learned why they'd backed down. Through a mutual acquaintance from high school, I discovered that Richard's business had been struggling for months. Several clients had left due to his aggressive sales tactics, and there were whispers about ethical violations in his insurance practices. They couldn't afford to draw attention to themselves by harassing me. Tyler, meanwhile, had been caught cheating on his SATs and was facing academic probation. His college prospects had evaporated, and his girlfriend's influential parents wanted nothing to do with the scandal. Their perfect life was crumbling without any help from me. The final chapter came 8 months after their visit. I was promoted to Senior Development Manager, leading a team of 12 engineers on our company's flagship project. The local tech magazine featured me in their Rising Stars issue, complete with a photo and interview about my journey from small-town New Mexico to Austin's thriving tech scene. I sent a copy to Dad, who framed it and hung it in his living room. A week later, I got a Facebook message from Tyler. The cocky teenager who dismissed me as a situation was gone, replaced by someone who sounded desperate and defeated. "Hey, Rebecca," he wrote. "I know things ended weird with Mom and everything, but I was wondering if you could help me out. My college plans fell through, and Mom says you're really successful now. Could we maybe talk?" I stared at the message for a long time, remembering the boy who had put his wet shoes on my coffee table and called me a complication. Now he needed something from me, just like Mom had all those months ago. But this time, I felt nothing but pity. I blocked him without responding. Today, my life is fuller than I ever imagined possible. I've built a team of brilliant engineers who've become my chosen family. Dad visits Austin regularly, marveling at the city's growth and my apartment's transformation. He's healthier now, happier and prouder than ever. I started a mentorship program for kids from low-income families, teaching them coding skills and helping them apply for college scholarships. Every time I see one of them succeed, I remember that 8-year-old girl who learned to cook her own meals and do her own homework. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd signed that document, if I'd agreed to legally erase myself from their lives. But I know it wouldn't have changed anything fundamental. You can't erase love that was never there to begin with. Mom and Tyler wanted me to disappear because they were ashamed of where I came from. But I realized that where I came from, that cramped apartment, those thrift store clothes, those nights helping Dad count quarters for grocery money, that's exactly what made me strong enough to build something real. They were ashamed of my past. I'm proud of my journey. The difference between us isn't money or social status. It's that I learned to create value through hard work and authenticity, while they tried to maintain appearances through manipulation and control. In the end, they got what they wanted. I stay out of their lives completely. But it was my choice, not theirs. And that makes all the difference. To anyone listening who's ever been told they're not good enough for their own family, remember this. The people who truly love you celebrate your success. They don't try to hide it. Family isn't about blood or shared last names. It's about the people who choose to stand by you when the world gets tough. Choose your family wisely. And never let anyone convince you to make yourself smaller just to fit into their narrow world. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've experienced something similar, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about overcoming family drama and finding your own path to success. Your worth isn't determined by the people who refuse to see it. It's determined by the life you build and the love you choose to surround yourself with. And sometimes, the greatest gift toxic family members can give you is their absence.